Good. I'm going to close this. All right. Welcome aboard. And I'm just delighted. I've got the folks I do, and I hope a couple more said they're going to be joining us. You can see the cat down there, and I'm just going to launch in here so we can sort of finish up more or less on time. This is, as you guys all know, I just read these satsangs. I do a light edit. I send out the edit to everybody. It's not in any way, I'm not trying to add any kind of explanation or any interpretations of these. They're just I try to clean up his delightfully eccentric syntax and some of his English usage. We found it so charming. And it's funny, it's sweet, but sometime this is going to be published, and I just want to do a light cleanup of his English usage. And then I love reading these things and then do a light sort of interpretation of some of the profundity and the complexity, the subtlety of these satsangs. For those who, most of us were with the Guru, we can remember the high jinks, the low jinks, the crazy late nights, the atmosphere of just incredible power and craziness around the Guru, mixed with wonderful periods of amazing lucidity and amazing depth and all this great stuff. So we listen to all these satsangs, and a lot of us at the time said, oh yeah, another Gururaj satsang. But now that it's over 30 years later, and I'm reading these things, and I know a lot more intellectually about spiritual traditions, I'm really amazed with these things. I think they're very, a little like Krishnamurti. They're his own take on these things. He is no monk. He's not an exponent of the Vedanta or any of the Advaita traditions that we know about. He's certainly no Buddhist. Nevertheless, he knows those teachings. He echoes them very profoundly, very succinctly, and in his own way. And when I read this, I've spent the day listening to Vedanta lectures, a very erudite, a very wonderful Vedanta monk explaining Shankaracharya today. So, and there was a couple of things which shed light directly on this satsang. This is the famous 20-time satsang. I don't know who started that tradition. I think somebody said, Gururaj said, to listen to this or read it 20 times. Because, as he often does, he gives the whole thing. He explains the whole 9 yards in this particular satsang. All except, well, I'll save it. One thing he doesn't really make clear, and there's a reason why he doesn't make it clear. So, as Gururaj always did, he started with a question from the audience. And it was Nirmala, who is very versed, a wonderful, peppery older woman, mother of Rupa, very knowledgeable about a lot of things. She'd already done a lot of spiritual searching, and she asked a question of the Guru, and I'm going to read a little bit from my introduction. In this satsang, a student asked Gururaj about the familiar spiritual concept of attachment. The questioner states a very common understanding that to obtain permanent liberation, that's what the Indians call it, moksha, the Buddhists might call it enlightenment. But to obtain permanent liberation in this life, we must give up all of our attachments to things like the sense of us as a limited person, to giving up our attachments to our ego, to places we love, to our life experiences, to what we do in this world, our position in this world, the things we care about, and even, it seems, to the pets, you know, the things we cherish. I don't know if I really cherish that cat completely as I should, but it's still around, so I must be care for it in some way, even to our pets. If this is so, we apparently should have no object of love whatsoever. And so are we just expected to live this dull, restricted life of non-attachment? But with this kind of apathy, how can we express that overwhelming love of which we're supposed to be composed? If we're composed of nothing but love, how does that square with this sort of detachment from the world? If we become totally desireless, well, then what's use of our creativity? Why do anything? So Gururaj explains that this whole concept is wrong. There's going to be a profound difference between desire and craving. and between attachment and detachment. But this is only the starting point, because Gururaj is going to go on. It's just what he's describing is just a necessary prerequisite to what life is really all about, the realization of who or what we really are beyond these attachments and beyond our desires. So what are we, and what or who is it that's attached or non-attached? Who or what is it that really wants to know? The knowing, this is me, the knowing of that knower, the knowing quality of whatever is doing the knowing, is beyond all questioning. It's beyond all thought, and it's beyond all doubt. It's the isness. It's the realization of the real, the self, beyond all separation into wanting or knowing of this or that. The real I is, in Gururaj's formulation, the real I-zation, which is the way our guru puts it. And he plays on words later in this in just a brilliant way. So now we're going to go to the satsang of Gururaj. Everybody got the question? It's a good one. By the way, to echo this question a little bit, to bring it home, I've listened to the Vedanta lectures today. And I listened to this wonderful Vedanta monk extolling, really praising the attitudes of, not Nayama, I forgot it, but it's one of the 8 yogas of the Patanjali Sutras of really strict renunciation. And he was praising the quality of one of the Ramakrishna monks who said, after 6 o'clock, the duty of a monk is to be meditating all night. You shouldn't need sleep. Just meditate all night. And this guy went sort of like a very severe attitude. Sort of like somebody offered this guy a special drink of cold yogurt on a hot day. And he took just a sip, and then he gave it back to the attendant. And the attendant said, "What's the matter, Swami? Didn't you like it? And he said, "Yes, I did like it." That was the problem. So this is what Gururaj is referring to. This is the attitude that he's talking about to here, okay? Just so you know, I mean, this is the way a lot of, consciously or unconsciously, me for a long time, really had some attitude like I was joking around with Tamu earlier. You know, like no whiskey, no cigarettes, you know, and I got a touch of that myself, renunciation. I'm wearing like right here, Tibetan monk colors right now, you know, Tibetan monk, you know, renounce, you know, the world, your attachment to the world. So Gururaj is going to address that. Gururaj says, nobody asks you to become desireless. Nobody asks you to be nodally non-attached. By the way, it's not quite true. That's actually what the original Buddhism is about. As Marian will know, the original Buddhism was, he said, the Buddha said, the world is on fire. It's on fire with desire. The way to achieve nirvana is extinction, to extinguish craving. So there are philosophies and attitudes that say, yes, you're supposed to become desireless. You're supposed to become totally non-attached. The total concept, Gururaj says, is wrong. It's your very nature is such that even the enlightened person must have at least 2% of attachments. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to maintain the body. While living in this relative world, you can never become non-attached. But there's one thing you do have to remember. While you can be attached to this flower or to your beloved one, you might have craving, might also be there. And any form of craving is what produces the problems within you. If you want to become detached, on the other hand, rather than being attached, well, then you're going to have to go away into some forest and try to escape from yourself. That's detachment. Little dig in there. Gururaj is saying, if you want to become the Ramakrishna monk and turn down the yogurt, you're going to be waging eternal war against all these natural impulses that you have. You want to sleep, you want to eat, occasionally you want to watch TV, or even more wicked and sinful things, like maybe a little glass of scotch or a cigarette or something like that. You're going to be that's running away in the forest and trying to run away from yourself. Okay? This is good for me to hear this kind of thing. Non-attachment can contain a beauty of its own. He's not rejecting non-attachment. The philosophies of the world, especially Eastern ones, will just tell you to become non-attached and non-attached and non-attached. But does this mean that you should not have any love for your loved ones, even your pets? No, you must have that love, because that quality of love within you will bring you to the realization of divinity. We all keep on saying that God is love and love is God. So if you detach yourself from love or become non-attached from love, you automatically, don't you? Then you're becoming non-attached from God, where then there's a sense of it. So you can have all the attachments you want. If you have a 5-room house, there's nothing wrong in having a 10-room house. But are you hankering after that 10-room house? Are you craving it? Is it going to do something for your ego self, your pride, your delusion? For example, am I craving to drive a Cadillac rather than just a little simple Volkswagen like my neighbor drives? Or to wear a better suit than my friend Jim might have? He's distinguishing between craving and the attachments normal attachments we might have, in this case, for things that we love. What then are the mechanics of craving? What's happening is that when you're craving, is that you're bolstering your ego and you're creating unnecessary wants within yourself. And the very creation of those unnecessary wants brings you suffering and misery. One little remark I've noticed in my life is things that I crave for, I think about a lot. Things that I'm attached to, that I love or care about a lot, I just enjoy them when they're there. And like I walk outside and it's a beautiful day and I walk in and I'm not thinking about the day. But things that you crave for are a little like the things that you are afraid of or that you really, are addicted to. They occupy a lot of the mental machinery. That is the suffering. All that thinking and worrying and yearning and fretting and desiring and planning, that's the suffering. So I have all the attachments you want, but they must be devoid of hankering. They must be devoid of the sense of bolstering your ego. They don't just mean pride. They mean the false sense of self, your thinking self. That's what he's talking about with the ego. All that fantasy, the stories you tell yourself, that's all coming out of your ego. Because that's what will happen with you. You won't be living within yourself. I'll repeat that. You must be devoid of the sense of bolstering your ego, because what will happen is that you will not be living within yourself. Note that. You'll be living in your ego self, which is composed of nothing else but thought formations. You'll be living in your head. Just thought formations. So does that mean, can we live without thinking? Of course we can. Most of the time we do. We're always thinking about fantasy. In fact, all thoughts are just fantasy. Have you noticed that? They're just fantasy, just stories. And that reality, what reality, what tangibility is there in thought forms? Because they're always changing all the time. For example, you might put on a blue shirt in the morning, but then you'll change your mind. You say, oh, I'm going to take off that blue shirt and let me put on a white one. If this is because your thought forms are changing all the times. So what else? If I have to put on a blue shirt, I'm going to wear a blue shirt. Why must I change it to a white one? Is it going to make me any different, a different person, than if I have a white shirt or a blue shirt or a green shirt? No. Your Gururaj will remain the same. You're damn thinking, like, should I do this? Maybe I should have done that. What? I'm not going to do that. I got to have this. you know, it's like, what is going to happen? Like, what is? Basically, well, quick, I don't like often talk about my spiritual practices, but try this one out. So you don't know whether you're going to do something or not. I always just ask my mind. I said, well, mind, after all your fussing and fuming and worrying about it, what are you going to do? And the mind will just tell me instantly, well, you're just going to end up doing this. Say, okay, well, then why should I screw with it? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to do it. Just try that and you'll be surprised, because you're just scamming yourself constantly. The thoughts are scamming us. The idea that a person has to develop is, I am forever the same. I have not changed at all. I come from the land of changelessness, and I will reach the land of changelessness. Sounds like one of those goofy Gururaj things. It's deep. What does it mean? How could you come for something that never changes? And how could you go to something that never changes? We think we come, we think we go, but the real I never changes. It never goes anywhere. I'll read it again. It's really deep. Think to yourself, I, the real I, am forever the same. I have not changed at all. I come from the land of changelessness, and the only place I can go is back into the land of changelessness. Now. Now he's getting very profound here. From non-changing, we're only proceeding to non-changing. Very famous, Marion will know this, Tibetan Buddhists love the 16th Karmapa. He was on his deathbed and he started whispering something. And one of the senior monks were very excited to listen to him. And he said, nothing changes. And he thought, oh, how amazing. That is so deep. And he ran out to tell all the others. He said, do you know what he just said? They said, what? He said, nothing changes. And the other one says, oh, he says that all the time. It's quite profound. Nothing changes. All the things that come up in your minds are always changing and changing and changing because they're nothing but thought forms. So, for example, my little daughter sitting over there might think she's very pretty because everybody thinks that they're pretty. Don't you know that? They imagine themselves to be far better looking than what they really are, and that's a fact. Look into the mirror, and you'll think that you're far nicer looking than you really are. We're too much involved with the outer stuff that surrounds us. It's this externality that is influencing our lives. Here's what we do. We go, well, you know, my life is pretty good. Well, maybe I'm right. You know, I know I'm right. You know, no. That's what we do with ourselves in front of the mirror in our own thoughts. Gururaj saying this is like, we think we're prettier. We think we're different. What is all that stuff? We do that all the time. We're lost to ourselves. He's saying, he said, it's the externality that is influencing our lives. We're reacting. Our thought forms are reactions to what we think of as our lives out there. I don't like that Mr. Trump. I really like this other person. What is it? Just all this gook? It's the externality which is influencing our lives, and everything which is external has the quality of motion. And wherever there is motion, there's going to be change. Any science will tell you that. As the external things around you change, you are at the same time being influenced by your ego self, which is forever changing. It is the changing of the ego self that makes you see the changes around you. It's all interrelated. That's an amazing observation. Your ego self makes you see the changes around you. Actually, life is always just life. But what we said is this, it looked better that way before. And yesterday, you said this to me, and it's going to be different in the future. You see, the ego is making a changing story out of what is simply is. The ego is constantly inventing this movie. All right, we all know this, but that's what Gururaj is referring to. The ego self is what sees change. There is no change. It just is. If everything's supposed to be in the moment, right? There isn't any past or any future. It's just now. Nothing changes. It's always now. When through your spiritual practices and your meditations, you find that beautiful stillness within you, then all change disappears. All change disappears, and you start appreciating what life is really about. Our greatest trouble lies in the non-appreciation of life, for we don't know what life is really all about. What does he mean we don't appreciate life? Well, we don't see what life is like. We don't really actually see life. We see our ego thoughts. All of you meditators, I'm sure you've been there. We're sitting there and we're supposed to observe, 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 right? After a while, we realize that observer is not that little voice in our heads. That's always changing. The little voice in your heads that's commenting on things like, gee, that was a pretty good meditation. That's your ego self. Something past that is a space that holds all those little thoughts that you're having and all those little cute observations and all those experiences of I like it and I don't like it. Something's holding all that. The buzzword is awareness, but that doesn't capture it. Life, Gururaj Ananda talk about the space that contains all that gook. That's the unchanging reality, the stillness within us. Stillness doesn't mean you don't have thoughts going on. It means that you are just not attached to those, not part of those thoughts. How many of you could really say that you know yourself? How many of you could truly say, I know my life? They don't mean the details, your stories about life. Do you know what your life is? You all have a far way to go to know yourself, to be able to know what life is. This is because nothing else can exist but life itself. For everything is living and pulsating. There are so many automatic processes going on in this universe of ours, even within your own bodies that you're not even aware of. How much of you are aware of your heart beating? Unless you get a pain and then you become aware. So your awareness lies in that pain, but not in the very object itself of your beautifully pulsating heart. A doctor can tell you how many gallons of blood it pumps in the 24 hours of a day, but you're not aware of that. I read this right now and I think about something that I heard Gururaj has said it before too, but the Vedanta monk today said it in his discussion on the Vedanta. This is very deep. He says, what is that? The knowing of which all else will be known. What is that? The knowing of which all else will be known. What Gururaj is talking about, what is that awareness by which everything is aware? It's to be aware of awareness itself. Anything, how can you be aware of anything that you're not aware of? No. And what's deeper is, does anything exist that you're not aware of? Depends on what you mean by you. If you mean the little personal self, of course not. But that's not what Gururaj is talking about here. How many people are really aware of themselves breathing? They're not. How many of you are aware of your own thoughts? You may think that you think, but what are the mechanics of thought? Where do thoughts originate? How do they come about? What's the mechanism within us that makes a thought form itself into a conscious thought? There's so much involved that is far deeper down within yourself, where you can go back further and further to the original thought, which is not only thought of by anything or any being. It found its existence by itself. And that thought force that found its own existence is still carrying on. as it will carry on for eternity. So be glad you have this little ego, so that at least you have some little cognition of what's happening around you. That means be glad that you can think about things at all, so that you have some little sense of what's happening around you. He's talking about the little you in your sense, or perhaps to a very limited degree of what's happening inside you. So our ordinary limited personality, body, mind, has a limited awareness. But he's talking about the larger. Do you know where this limited awareness, all these thoughts, where do they originate? First of all, neuroscience now, as you guys all have heard, has pointed out that before we have any conscious thought, and include we make any decisions, it's already been made deep, deep down in the deep levels of the brain. We only actually, the conscious thought takes place some microsecond after the original impulse has occurred deeper in the brain. Gururaj is telling us, well, good, nice, Mr. Scientist. If you follow that back, where do those impulses eventually come from? Out of nothing? Gururaj, and according to these deeper philosophies that we're studying, says these impulses that form our bodies, our thoughts, this manifest world of awareness, where does all this manifestation come from in awareness? Well, they use the word vibration because that's our translation for what the rishis of old used to call this spanda, the vibration of the universe, how this whole creation comes into being. The wiser spiritual teachers, not like myself, is when you get into this, you simply say, you're really not going to be able to figure it out. So it's no use even trying to figure out how that would work. Let's just say it's not, remember, we are not our brains. Where this comes from, it's not an arising within the physical brain. It comes from some deeper and broader. Consciousness is based on, I'm editorializing. I've been listening to a lot of Rupert Sheldrake, for example, who talks about the current theory that consciousness is not restricted to our brains, as the materialists think. Here we come to the basic premise, says Gururaj. I do not know who I am. I do not know what life is, and I don't know the force that's involved in the creation or manifestation of life. Yes, beautifully said Gururaj. This is our suffering. This is our ignorance. I don't know who I am. I don't know what life is, and I don't know what is the force. How does this come about? He actually has restated, I heard in the Vedanta lecture today, those are the three fundamental inquiries that he called it for the Atman Vichara, the self-inquiry. These are the three basic questions you ask. Who am I? What's going on? And what's made it happen? Three questions, okay? I'm giving you, sorry, because this was echoed in the Vedanta lecture today. Who am I? Okay, what the heck is going on? What's making this all happen? Those are the three things we need to know. Those are the vital issues, says Gururaj, of which people know nothing about. All these theologians just keep on going, man, know thyself, but they don't even answer it. They only make an injunction. They command you, man, know thyself. But do they provide the answer to what you really are? Do they even show you any techniques for how you're going to know yourself? So most of these theologies can just be thrown away. They're just the formulations of unrealized men and women, that's for true. And if they had been self-realized, they would have told you the why and the wherefore of things. When they say, man, know thyself, they must explain to you who is thyself and what is that force that governs the self. Remember the three questions in Atman Vichari, how do you mind? Anyway, who am I? What the heck is going on? And how is this all happening? Three questions. We normally divide things up, meaning me and it. We divide things up because separation is just part of our nature. We always divide things up. This glass, I think, is separate from me. And you are separate from her, or whatever the case may be. I'm separate from this video camera. And because of this sense of separation, you also create the separation from your little self. It's separated from the big self. which is what you really are. And what is the big self? It's that reality that exists within you. That is the big self. It is indefinable, incomparable, and beyond all words. It is indefinable, but it is still experientiable. Now, I read this a long time ago. At first, I thought maybe he's just trying to mystify things, but this is very interesting. And I was listening to Rupert Spira, as a teacher a lot of you know, and his own teacher is a man named Francis Lucille, I think. Anyway, both very good Advaita teachers. They say it's not possible to know awareness, to know the big self. Because anytime you know something, you're creating a thought about it. Anytime you create a thought about it, you've separated yourself up. You projected out of the real self, you've projected an object of consciousness, an object of awareness. And that's not, the awareness is not an object. Awareness is a process. It's the space in which everything takes place. It's indefinable. So you can never actually nail what it is, but you can experience it. This is self-realization. When you realize, oh, first you realize what you aren't, and then at some point you begin to realize what you are. First you realize what you aren't, and then you realize what you are. If you can regard life to be an experience itself, existing by itself, then you will at least have come a little way nearer to the truth of yourself. This is why in the Zen stories you always say, like, what is Buddha? Oh, Buddha is a universal sense of that hits you in your head. It's an experience, stupid. It's not a concept. That is the knowing that I exist. When you can really say this without that little ego, which talks a lot of nonsense, it's always talking a lot of gibberish and gibbering around. Remember, your ego is your thoughts. When you can really say, I exist, you know the meaning of yourself, of that eternal I, which is you and nothing else. Nothing else in this universe exists. Only you exist. And within saying, I exist, I find that entire universe exists in me without separation. The universe is not there, for if that universe were there, I would be nowhere. But because I bring that universe within myself, I can truly stand up and say, I exist, for I am divinity itself, and nothing else can exist but divinity itself. I suggest you guys all read that paragraph many times. If you think by I, he means that little personality self, well, you're an idiot. I exist. There's nothing but existence. You are existence. How could you not be? You think, how could this? I'm not aware of everything. Your little I is not aware of much at all. But your big I is the awareness. It's not aware. There's not an I here and it's doing awareness. It's the doing of the awareness that is the I. Nothing exists in this universe but the big I, the big you. There's nothing, there can't be anything else there. Otherwise it would just be an object of thought. And yet people put on their labels. They call him, meaning God, a he. Or some other religionists might call that force a she. I'm into goddess worship, so a lot of people like goddesses. Women are powerful. It's not a woman. Gururaj once said it. I love this. He once said in satsang years ago, he says, God does not have a penis. So I remember walking out of satsang and said, tonight we learned something. God does not have a penis. He's saying, it's not about men and women. Okay, those are just concepts. I just call it it. It exists. Now, what is it that Descartes said? You remember the famous philosopher Descartes? He said, I think, therefore I am. That's a very famous proposition in Western philosophy. With a bloody fool. If I were here, I would shoot him. I think, therefore I am. But who is it that thinks? What thinks? And what thought could give you the meaning of I am that I am? How could you think that? How could you cognize that? Do you see how wrong Descartes was? You could never think that you are. Instead, you are. And therefore you think. Your thoughts arise out of what you really are. You're not your thoughts. Okay? It's the other way around. These philosophers, Herbert Spencer and Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, what a waste of valuable time. And Kant, too. He spelled his name wrong. What a great loss of valuable time and paper. With us, it's different. With a touch, I can make you experience who you are. You just have to be a bit ready for it. You just take one step, and I will take you 10 steps further. That's my responsibility. And if you can only walk one step, then I'm going to carry you for 10 more steps to give you rest. And then I'm going to kick your backside, and I'm going to say, now come on, do some more walking. And when you feel tired, I'll still be there with you. These are truths. These are true teachings, which must come within one's realization. And do not think that you've realized something, because realization has nothing to do with thought. 2 points. Do not think that you have realized something, because realization has nothing to do with thought. It's experience experiencing itself, not thoughts. The other thing I mentioned, the Guru is a big topic, but where he talks about, with a touch, I can make you experience who you are if you're ready. Gurus are very controversial now in our culture. Too many money-loving gurus, too many sex abuse, too much. So people tend to think gurus are bogus. They're not. A genuine human guru it's not bogus, but you have to be ready for it. And the Vedanta professor today told a beautiful story about, I think he was talking about Ramakrishna. No, he was talking about Vivekananda. The story about Vivekananda. Vivekananda was talking to a group of monks, and one of his attendants, a very senior monk, was walking into the room. And Vivekananda just finished saying, everything is one. And that monk stopped dead in his tracks. And Swami today, this wasn't just an apocryphal story. I mean, he apparently had witnessed this, or he knew this by firsthand. He said the monk just stopped and just went like this. Went into samadhi right there. Just went into a deep state of meditation. And he stayed like that. In other words, all he did was have to be in the presence. He hadn't heard any more of that talk, but all I had to do is Swami said one thing like that, and this man was at a state of realization, this attendant monk. That's all he needed to hear. And he went into a samadhi where he was the existence itself. I mean, these things happen. And the monk today said that finally Vivekananda had to say, you can move now. And the guy, oh, okay, went on. So anyway, Gururaj, this kind of stuff actually happens. This is because all thought is just formulated by your imagination. It's just the creation of one thought combining itself with another thought and then thinking it's creating a new thought. It's not. It's just what thinking is all about. Right? Very important to understand. When we finally realize that our thoughts are not real, my God, is that a relief. I once said in the AMS satsang, because I figured this out way back when, and I said I realized I'd never had a single original thought in my life. I just picked it up from TV and from schools and instincts and crap and television. I've never had a single original thought my entire life. It's just all horseshit. You know, it's all just horseshit. That is just what thinking is about. It's just combining more and more gook into different patterns, recombining and putting in different patterns. But realization is something else. Here's where he's playing on the words, quotation. Real I without any cessation. Real I, cessation. Real I without cessation. That is realization. So, children of immortality, like Vivekananda has said, arise, awake, and stop not until the goal be reached. But this I would add, be brave. And Vivekananda was fierce like a lion. I hear people talking about Vivekananda, not afraid of nothing. So let me tell you a little secret and understand this very well. That which you think is real is not real at all. And that which you think is unreal is the true reality. I've always loved this phrase of his. I don't know. I don't think he made it up. I think he got that from somewhere, but it's wonderful. That which you think is real is not real at all. But that which you think is unreal is the only reality. That which you thinking about, anything you think about isn't real. Anything you think about is not real. But that which you think is unreal, okay? I'm not the divine Lord itself. I can't be. How could I be God? That which you think is unreal is the only true reality. How many of you guys have been meditating, and every time you're saying like, gee, I'm really meditating good now. Huh. Yeah, I'm being really quiet. Huh. I'm in thought-free awareness. I'm sitting long. Gee, how much longer I've got to... Beneath that, the thing which you're barely aware of is just this, justness. That's the thing we find to be unreal. We can't stay with it because we don't think it's real. So what are you confirming? What are you affirming? This world is pregnant, but I'm not talking about population explosions. This world is pregnant with thoughts that can never germinate because the world is involved in thought formations. How can the formless have formation? And how can thought realize with its own particular forms that which is formless? Is that possible, I ask you? Realization. That's where we have to reach, and very fast too. I've thought a lot about this paragraph. Marilyn and I were writing about it. I think fundamentally, the thing to think about is we're always trying to figure it out. We're always trying to fix it. It's already fixed. It's already happened. It's already turned out. But we're never convinced of that. We're completely pregnant with thoughts. They can never actually germinate anything. The more you try to figure it out, the more people you elect, the more causes you support, the more Facebook pages petitions you send and everything like that, it just makes more and more and more and more gook. It never actually, it's just gook. Realization, that's where we have to reach, and very fast too. The other part of your question, is self-realization possible in this lifetime? I don't remember that, and my question is, yes, it is possible. If you spend just 6 months with me, constantly in my company, I will make you self-realized, not by knowledge and wisdom alone, but by opening yourself up for a touch where you will start identifying yourself with identification itself, which is none other than yourself. I'll read that again. Where you will start identifying yourself with identification itself, which is none other than yourself. When you identify yourself, all right, is you identify with your thoughts. But when you identify with identification itself, That's isness or awareness. It's possible. Some people are lazy, perhaps, or they don't even know the meaning of the wherefore and the why, so it might take millions of lifetimes, perhaps. But that's not necessary. Why wait so, this whole theory of Buddhism and a lot of Vedanta is, you acquire, the Buddhist term is you acquire merit and wisdom, experience of the real nature of reality, plus virtue. You overcome all your defilements, all of your habits and addictions and all that, okay? But then the direct path people just say, why are you spending, you're convinced you're spending lifetimes having to do that? Well, guess what? Your conviction that you're going to have to spend lifetimes doing that is a big problem in itself. So he said, why take so blooming long? Why don't you find it right here and now? When you walk out here, don't you realize that you're walking? I'll repeat that. So why wait so blooming long? Find it here and now. When you walk out of here, do you realize that you are walking? No, it's just emotion you're producing. In other words, you go unconscious and in your thoughts again. But if you can feel that ground that you're walking on, then you will know that my feet are firmly planted on the ground. And then I make my feet and the ground the basis of my personal reality. Oh my God, we're almost done. I'm going to repeat it again. It's not that necessary to wait forever. Why wait so blooming long? Why not find it here and now? When you walk out of here, do you even realize that you're walking? No, it's just a motion you're producing. But if you can feel that ground that you're walking upon, then you will know that my feet are firmly planted on this ground, and then I make my feet and the ground the basis of my personal reality. What the hell is he talking about there? Some of you are already doing this. In other words, you'll notice that in these talks, I almost never talk about doing spiritual practices, or especially my own spiritual practices, but here I'm going to make an exception. Normally, we walk around, we're thinking about, I'm going to go out and get a sandwich. You walk out the kitchen, and there's thing, the Buddhism, they tell you you're supposed to be mindful. So let's say you're a Buddhist and you're mindful. I am now walking. I am now walking. I'm walking down the hall. I'm going to the kitchen. I'm going to make a peanut butter sandwich. I'm going to touch the bread. I'm picking up the bread. I'm feeling the bread. I'm going to open, blah, blah, blah. You have all this thought, the thought. I won't go into, don't even bother. Just do this. Some of you already do this right now. When you meditate, or right now, if you can do it, just open up your body, forget the idea that you're a body, and just let your awareness just completely fill the room. I'm doing it right now. Just go ahead, just let yourself just go. And feel your awareness darting around the room. Feel the space. Open your body up. Some of you already do this. It's Tantra. You're the body of light. Just let your body be filled with light. It's not a body. Feel it. In fact, at first it's artificial. You do it through your imagination, but then sooner or later you're sitting there, you actually are completely filled with light. It's a completely concrete feeling. You're just like, well, you're just light. Gururaj says like this, it becomes the basis of your personal reality. This floor is nothing but you. The peanut butter sandwich is you. The hallway is you. It's all your awareness. You are not the little you think you are. That's just more thoughts. You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the peanut butter sandwich. Those are just thoughts about stuff. It's not about thoughts. It's about experience. It's about reality. Reality is just what's happening. That's what reality is. No mystery. Nothing's hidden. What's happening is real. This is all happening. So listen to Gururaj, and I'm sorry to talk about my own stuff, but it isn't my stuff, it's Gururaj's stuff. Listen to what he's saying. This is so wonderful. This is how he ends. And this is a great master. It just sounds like bullshit. It's not. It's great stuff. So he says, look up at the sky. What do you see? If you ask somebody, they might say, oh, that sky is blue. Well, that's bullshit. The sky isn't blue. It's the water down there that's blue. It's reflected up that makes the sky seem blue. Try to touch that sky to see if it's blue or not. What's he talking about? Open up your experience. There's no words for it. You open up your heart. You know, as a great Zen teacher once said, he said, you think you hear the blue jay outside. He said, listen, hear the blue jay in your heart. You know, there's no separation. It's just, this is all divine experience. You know, that which you think is real, me and the blue jay and the peanut butter sandwich, that's unreal. He says that which you think is unreal, which is that this is all completely real. That's the only reality. So Gururaj says, the sky isn't blue, you just labeled it. It's like, look outside and like, the sky is blue. What does that mean? The sky's not blue. What is the sky? It's just a word. You look up, try to touch it. Can you actually touch what you're naming? Here's one. Can you even really touch yourself? You're not your body. You're not your thoughts. They change all the time. You have a definite sense. I am. I'm me. Who are you? I am me. But who is you? Well, we've all done this. Go through it. You won't be able to figure out who you or what you are. All you know is that you exist. That's all you know. And guess what? That's all there is to know. I exist. That's all you can know. So try to touch the sky and see if it's blue or not. And then Gururaj says, but I am blue. I'm so blue for you guys for not going a little bit faster for self-realization. And therefore, sometimes I cry for you. And I feel blue. Nice little joke. Is compassion. Some of us types, me, you know, the intellectual types, we're like, well, if it's all just emptiness and it's all one, then who is there to care about anything? You know, if I don't really exist and this doesn't exist, then how can there be a compassion? And that just is an asshole argument. The truth is, it's just, you know, be dumb about it. It's all love. Of course we care about everything. I think we make it all up just so we can have something to care about, like we make up our pets to go all the way back to the beginning. So we've got something to love, something to care about. Anyway, this is the 20 times tape. This is the whole shebang, and done in a very elegant, very poetic. I think I have to remember that when Gururaj was doing this in the early 80s, none of us we knew who the Maharishi was, and a couple of people had figured out, it just started figuring out Ramana Maharshi and some of those people, but it wasn't nearly. We've had 30 years of a lot of us intensely interested in Gururaj and interested in all kinds of teachings. One thing I love about our guru, since it's only now just 6 o'clock, it only took an hour, is that he ain't no Buddhist and he ain't no Hindu. And I hang out with different people, and what Gururaj says, the isness, trying to touch the sky. What we realize is he's not saying, well, you have to practice bodhicitta, and here's the exercises for learning how to practice bodhicitta, or this is Shankaracharya, and these are the three stages of there's no philosophy, there's no religion in this at all. There isn't any religion. It's just direct, what the Buddhists call, in fact, the Vedanta people call pointing out instruction. It's direct pointing at what is really there. Even me calling it pointing out instruction is giving it another label. Okay, so it's worth studying, it's worth loving, okay? And it is, do you know what the only purpose of being alive for a long time is A, to experience being alive, and the second thing is, so we have time to allow this stuff to sink in. Apparently when we're dead, it's harder to let this stuff sink in. That's what I've been told by people who apparently know what it's like to be dead. That it's harder to I guess you have to really experience the dream of having a body to really love this stuff in a deep way. So I'm going to open it up for comments. Let me see if I can figure out how to get manners to participants and unmute all. Okay. How many people have I got? How many people? All right. All right. Anybody got comments? Objections?
No, I saw that. I saw that satsang.
You what now?
That was one of my very first satsangs.
Tell us about it.
Well, because it was one of my very first satsangs, it was a true mystery, complete mystery. And since it was the 20 times satsang, I probably managed 12 of those times. But I really enjoyed what you were saying there. My thought is that it is simply the awareness of life. And then as we try and make sense of that life, we begin to build an ego. We begin to build a, this is the way things work concept. As opposed to just simply moving on to the next moment and existing in that next moment. It has taken me a long time to see that.
Hey, Joe. Whoops, Beth.
What?
It's just sometimes people fill the screen. Now you're going. It's amazing you got to see that satsang for the first time. It's what a thing to come in, but also what a blessing to walk it up. That would be your first one.
Well,
and,
a blessing in hindsight, not at the time. It was really confusing.
But you're still with it. You're still with it. Almost everybody else has left. That's spiritual practice. It was a blessing then. It's a continuing blessing now.
Yeah, continuing blessing.
And what are we? What is the nature of the ego? I was hearing some guy talking about today. On one hand, it's like, who cares? It's like stuff. Okay.
I always found that interesting that when people talked about the evil of, they would talk about the ego. We have to extinguish. We have to get rid of the ego.
Yeah.
In reality, I think this satsang, in a sense, says you really don't get rid of anything. If you fall back enough to sit within yourself, just being aware that I'm alive, I'm existing, I'm continuing on, then you can be open to the experience of being there.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to make it happen so that it fulfills this plan, it works out this way for me because I need to do that, and it has to work out this way, then you're caught up in the plan, the ego, and that just doesn't.
You do bring up that paradox that people think the ego is evil and wrong. And there's even in spiritual practice, they think that thoughts are evil and wrong. Gururaj was pointing out is that, you wouldn't have much of a life if you didn't have thoughts. You'd just be a jellyfish. So you're going to have thoughts. Not only that, but you're going to have big plans and big ideas because that's what we human beings are all about. He's talking about the notion of craving. That brings in suffering. And the other thing is, how do you phrase it? You say, instead of being a limited human being, trying to figure out what God is, why don't you just identify with God being a limited human being? Just do it that way. And that's a paraphrase of something I heard today. Just, they does it. The ego, one of my teachers was saying, you're still going to be fretting, and even after quite a great deal of awakening, you're still going to be fussing and thinking about this and that. I mean, what else is there to do? Be around and be sublime all the time? You might have a good time. Thinking is having a good time. It's just more, it's like watching movies.
Come on in.
Anybody? Lori?
Well, let let me jump back. The two things that he used to talk about a lot were the road trip, where you're going to go someplace, you know, you're going to go to New York, or if he was on the West Coast, you were going to go to San Francisco or something of that sort. And then the idea that people had the plan. And what he was attempting to say, at least as I understood it at that time, and still think of it, is just enjoying the trip, rather than following the plan. And that too was a really tough one for me to take. And then the other image or the other metaphor that he used a lot that has rung bells for me for years and years and years is surfing the waves of life. And not being caught up in that so much as simply recognizing that the wave is forming. If I catch it now, I can surf. And then when it collapses, and I go back out and try again. And those were all really great images for me to get a sense of the difference between planning and having expectations that had to be fulfilled, and non-attachment to those things.
It's like that old idea about how do you do Paris? You know, it's like people like read all the books about Paris, and you plan the road trip ahead of time. We're going to go visit this, and we're going to see that. And then you go to Paris, you're walking around with a guidebook, and you read about, oh, that's that, you know, and you read about, oh, there's the Eiffel Tower, you read the guide like this. So,
yeah, but you also take lots of photographs, and then you remember to look at
that's the best part. It's like this, but you go out in the middle of like the Arizona, you say, God, this place is huge, you know, in your desert, let's take a picture of it. You get home, it's this little photograph with just a flat line through the middle of it. That's a famous story about Picasso that I like this. They said, what are you painting? He said, well, this is a portrait of a woman. And he said, it doesn't look like a woman to me. He says, well, do you have a picture of a woman? He said, of course. And they get all that, here's a woman. And Picasso said, is this a picture of a woman? And the guy said, yes. Is this what she looks like? Of course. He said, but she's so small. Picasso said that. There's no way. You know, how can you know what Paris is? You know, especially I think it would be great to have somebody to put them down in some other city, put them down in Copenhagen, and then send them around there saying, where is the Eiffel Tower? You know, it's like, where is it? And basically that's what being confused in life is like. We have a plan. I am who I am, you know, or whatever your story is, but life isn't conforming to your plans for it. It's like, you know, I don't see any plane. These people aren't speaking French. You know, what kind of a Paris is this? That's what we do in life a lot. It's like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, I'm supposed to be, you know, and we go on and make up our stuff. Well, gang. So I said last time we were going to be doing something on relationships and or sexuality. And I started looking for some thing on relationships. Maybe somebody can help me remember the satsang where he's talking about that he wanted his jailers to be normal and to live in normal lives. And he was talking about he did not preach celibacy. And he wanted people, he said, if you're a couple, he said, in a bed together, he says, make it a little soft so you roll together. He was trying to talk about, he was speaking against this idea of renunciation and detachment and all that. Anyway, he was also had a satsang where he talked about the way you interact with your significant other is to treat him or her as a god or goddess.
Yeah.
What is that?
So sorry. Those
Oh, it's like a god. Anyway, if anybody knows what those satsangs are, I would appreciate it. This 20 times one I picked up because somebody, it might have been Ramon, somebody happened to mention it or it came up somehow. And I said, okay, well, the universe has spoken. We'll go with it 20 times. And it's a very wonderful, wonderful one.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So Anybody, if people do not want relationships and sexuality, anything else, I think he's even have one satsang somewhere on extraterrestrials. Anybody into the grays and the blues and all the names of the UFO people? I hope they really are. I hope there's UFO people keeping an eye on this whole situation down there. That'd be nice.
Have you ever seen or heard the Shitron?
Oh, we could do the shitrons.
Right.
All right, help me find the satsang on shitrons. That's deep, where he takes apart particle physics. And that's more, I won't tell you what I think it needs, but help me find the satsang with the shitrons. And that's the one where I'll do that, because that's just great.
I have the tape or the video.
All I need is I can get the transcript. All I need is the number of that shitron, one of his great satsangs, Gururaj versus particle physics. And it'll help because I've watched a YouTube program recently all about particles, subatomic particles, the history of particle physics, and these poor old, the gluons, the Klingons, the string theories about all these particles, all the physicists. One of the great physicists, I can't remember which one of them would come up with a theory, a formula that expressed the entire universe. Oh, who is this guy? Not Niels Bohr. Somebody, damn it. One of them. And then 10 years later, another guy comes up with even a better formula that explains it even better. And then I think the final one was quantum electrodynamics, which Richard Feynman came up. And that was like the biggest one that anybody, oh my God, this explains everything. And they say, but what about gravity? And they say, oh no. And then poor old physicists get twisted into knots. That's about the satsang on shitrons that explained the fundamental particle of the universe is a shitron. And Buzz, I like the hat. In fact, I see a hat.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
All right, guys. What's that?
It's genuine.
A genuine Panama. They're expensive. Is it a crushable one?
Yeah.
Is it crushable?
It tends to blow off my head sometimes.
That's why I can't wear them either. I like hats, but they always just blow off your head. It's the shitrons do it, Buzz.
Yes, I don't doubt that any longer.
It's a shitron. All right, you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.